Namaste and greetings to everyone. A fair bit of warning that this content is mostly going to be in English, so bear with me. The audience that usually listens to me in Gujarati, I will add a little bit of Gujarati and some Hindi as well, but this is going to be very simple English. This is a very atypical video series because the question that prompted this video series is a very challenging question. And once the question occurs, suddenly a lot of things change. The question is, what would you do when you know you're going to die in 7 days? How are you going to best utilize your time? So this is the story of that. It's a story that's been shared widely and publicly, and many of you may have heard it, but I'm going to share this story in English so that it reaches the people, the audience that may not yet have been exposed or introduced to this. So let me start and set the stage of what led to this question and what were the circumstances that led to this understanding of optimizing and utilizing the very little and limited time that we have as humans. So let me set the background for that. If you don't know any of the characters, or if you want to know anything more about them, you can just put it in the chat. I can address it if it's live, or I will come back and let you know at some point. So right now the protagonist, the name of the protagonist is Parikshit. Okay. The Pandavas ruled in Hastinapur for a long time. They ruled under the kingship of their eldest brother, who was Yudhishthir, and they were under the protection of Lord Shri Krishna. But when the Lord when Shri Krishna left the earth altogether from Prabhas Patan, you may have heard the story, they became very despondent, sad, and retired to the Himalayas, the great mountains, to live a life of austerity and penance. So this much has already happened. Their grandson, whose name is Parikshit, he is the grandson of the Pandav prince Arjuna, and he was placed on the throne of Hastinapur as the king. He was a very wise and noble ruler and worked hard exclusively for the welfare of his people. This is something that is very important. Kings and leaders working for the welfare of their people. There is no vested interest or self-interest in this. This is a duty. There is righteousness in it, and you have the position, and you use that role and position for the welfare of others. So one day, he was strolling on the banks of the river Saraswati when he saw a very strange sight. See, when something very poignant, something very significant is about to happen, there is this situation that gets created, and there is oftentimes a strangeness about it. So while strolling on the banks of river Saraswati, he sees this very strange sight. A man who is dressed in royal clothes was kicking and torturing a white bull. It's weird. A cow was standing close by and shedding tears. The bull had lost 3 of its legs, and this wicked man was about to cut off its 4th leg too. Ouch. Parikshit, when he saw this, he instantly became very angry, and he turned to the man and said that, "How dare you ill-treat these innocent creatures? Do you not know that I am the king of this land and that I can punish you even with death?" Then Parikshit turned to the trembling and shivering bull and cow and spoke to them very kindly, soothing them, inquiring how the bull had lost its 3 legs. The bull bowed its head before the king and said, "O king, you wonder who has caused my suffering? The answer to this, even I do not know. Some say that beings in their ignorance cause their own happiness or sorrow. Others say it is due to their past karmas. I do not know which is true." The king asked the bull very politely that, "How did this happen? How did you lose your 3 legs?" And the bull says, I don't know. Is it due to my ignorance, my past karmas? I do not know. First of all, Parikshit was very surprised to hear the bull speak. He thought deeply. The realization instantly came to him that the bull was none other than Dharma himself. Dharma means virtue, righteousness. The cow was Mother Earth, and the wicked man was Kali. The spirit of Kali, the Kali Yuga, the era of Kali, the iron age of our times. So the 3 characters who were the bull, the cow, and the man were Dharma, Mother Earth, and Kali. Parikshit then said to the bull, "You are indeed personification of Dharma. Your 4 legs are purity, austerity, charity, and truthfulness. Of these, you have lost 3 legs: purity, austerity, and charity. You are now standing on truthfulness alone, and this too Kali was about to crush." So this is all symbolism over here. The 3 legs of austerity, purity, and charity, with the passing of ages, had already become extinct. Truthfulness, honesty, was the only one remaining, and that too was being chopped off by Kali. The change in the age, the change in the cognitive capacity, the other afflictions, the other um, intentions, the other attractions. Truthfulness was also being sacrificed. Saying this, Parikshit turned to Kali and with his drawn sword and was about to cut off his head. This is when Kali fell to his feet and begged, "Please hear me out. Now, a king cannot kill any creature who asks for protection. શરણાગત માં આવેલાને શરણાગતિ આપવી એ રાજાનો ધર્મ છે." So Parikshit now had to listen to Kali. Okay. The king is now listening to Kali. Kali said, "Hey, I am supposed to be the ruler of the next age, which we all know as Kali Yuga, which will be full of cruelty and falsehood. Such is the will of the Lord. So please spare my life." Parikshit was touched by Kali's humility and said, "Go, I grant you your life, but let me not see you anywhere while I am ruling the kingdom." Kali pleaded and said, "But I must live somewhere. Give me some place to live in." So Parikshit allowed him to live in all the houses for gambling and drinking, places where there is cruelty to women and animals, and centers where gold is acquired and hoarded. To these he added the fields of falsehood, pride, jealousy, enmity, and lust, where Kali flourished and prospered. Now that we know the places where this wicked Kali resides, we must try to avoid them. And like King Parikshit, we must try and restore to the poor bull its three lost legs of purity, austerity, and charity. So, this gives you an understanding of who this king was, what was his nature, how righteous, how virtuous he was, and how the change in era, the change in times came and tried to push that back. Now, one day what happens is that King Parikshit, he had gone for hunting deep into the jungle all by himself. The hunt grew exciting and he lost all the sense of time. He was so engrossed in it. He had now come to a thick, dark part of the jungle. After some time, he felt hungry and thirsty. Obviously, he had spent a lot of time, so he wandered further about in search of water. This search took him deeper and deeper into the forest, and one can imagine, therefore, his relief and happiness when he suddenly came across a hermitage of the well known sage Samik. Parikshit looked all around, but he could not see anyone in the hermitage. Then, in one part of the ashram, he saw the sage sitting in samadhi. His eyes were closed, his body was erect. He was not conscious of the world outside. He was in a state of samadhi, so obviously he was not aware of the conscious of the world outside. In fact, he was in deep meditation. But Parikshit, because of his hunger and thirst and the desperation to quench it, did not realize this. So he goes up to him and asks, "Where can I get a drink of water?" The sage obviously did not reply. How could he? He was deeply absorbed in meditation. And yet Parikshit asked him for a second time, "Where can I get water?" Sage Samik, however, sat motionless and erect and completely unaware of the thirsty king that was seeking water. Now, Parikshit, in that state of hunger and thirst and desperation, thought to himself that this fellow is pretending. How can he not hear my request for water? Let me see how great his concentration is. So he picked up a dead snake from nearby and placed it around the rishi's neck. This was not at all a nice thing to do. You can imagine somebody puts a dead snake around you. That's not a good thing. Shamik, he was completely unaware and he remained perfectly calm and fully concentrate. He was completely unaware of outside, so he didn't react to anything and he focused on his meditation. A few yards away from the hermitage was a small stream. Here, the sage's son, a young boy called Shringi, had gone to fetch water. As he was returning, he saw what had happened at the ashram. He got visibly angry and hurt at the insult to his holy father. The boy himself had amassed a lot of spiritual power. As Parikshit was about to leave, Shringi sipped off a little water from his palm, and in a thundering voice, he called out, "Obeying my command, on the seventh day from today, a powerful serpent called Takshak will bite you to death, you proud Kshatriya who had insulted my holy father." And he wept bitterly at the insult of his father. So basically, the son of that sage cursed King Parikshit that on the seventh day, a serpent by the name of Takshak will put an end to his life. Now, the sage Samik, when he comes back to his consciousness, he comes back from his meditation, he found his son lamenting loudly. He asked him what had happened. Shringi told him what King Parikshit had done and the curse he had pronounced upon him. When he heard the story, Shamik scolded him and said, "Son, you should not have been so harsh. Kings are different from us. They carry the entire burden of the country on their shoulders. It is difficult to find a king as good as Parikshit. Besides, he had come to us only for rest and refreshment. He meant no harm. One wrong cannot be set right by another. O Lord, please forgive my foolish son. Everything is now in your hands. Never once did the noble sage even think of the way Parikshit had insulted him. See, this is the sages, they have this capacity to absorb the most destabilizing things. Wise men, wise people, wise humans have the ability to absorb. And I talk about this ability to absorb in one of my books called Radioactive Flourishing. How to absorb this radioactivity and instability. How to have the clarity to have the kind of perspective that is required and not be swept away by anger and other emotions. Radioactive flourishing, how to flourish despite instability, is what is needed. And sages, because they have worked so much on themselves, they have that. So he didn't think that the king Parikshit had insulted him or anything. His heart was full of divine love. He was in a state of flourishing. In Parikshit, he saw only the good, the kind, and the just, and not the man who had shown disrespect to the great rishi. Such then are the noble, large-hearted sages. And we have to aspire to create this nobleness, large-heartedness in us. But here is the situation. 7 days is what King Parikshit has. Because on the 7th day, he has been cursed that a serpent by the name Takshak is going to come and bring death upon him. Well, after all this happens, King Parikshit goes back to his palace. He felt really, really sorry and guilty for his bad behavior towards the saint. He was a good person, and so he felt bad. He sat and thought over his action. He remembered the divine glow on the sage's face, and again he was full of sorrow. He welcomed, now most people would be like very upset, but he welcomed the curse of Shringi, the sun, because he thought that, this is a just punishment for my sins. I had become very attached to my kingdom and my people, and pride had taken over. Now that I know that my end is near, I can spend my last days hearing the stories of the Lord and in meditating upon His divine glories. Once that realization hits that your days are numbered, that your time here is not infinite, your priorities shift. And a king, he was ruling the entire land. He had so many different priorities, but then once this happens, clarity hits. We have seen this at the time of COVID. It's called the end of life wisdom. End of life wisdom occurs to many when the realization that the life is going to end, life as we know is going to end, this realization dawns upon us. So the same thing happened to Parikshit, King Parikshit. It was like, now I have only 7 days. So I'm going to make the most of these 7 days, and how and what can I do? He says, I'm going to hear about all the stories of the Lord. So then he called his son Janmejay and handed over his kingdom to him and went to live on the banks of the sacred river Ganga, where he decided to meet his death peacefully with his mind fixed on the Lord. He gives away his kingdom to his son Janmejay, and he goes away to the banks of river. Here on the Ganges bank, Parikshit was visited by a number of holy sages and rishis. Among them were Vedvyas, Vashisht, Agats, Angira, Maitreya, and many others. Parikshit showed them the due respect and asked for their blessings. As they were all engaged in conversation upon the Lord's glories. The revered young sage Shuk came. He was the son of Ved Vyas. He was only 16 years old. He was a digambar, which means he wore no clothes, and his face glowed, his eyes shone, for although he was very young, he had infinite knowledge and wisdom and an unceasing devotion for the Lord. All the assembled sages stood there to receive Shuk, for he was held in great esteem by them. Parikshit touched his feet in deep respect and stood before him with folded hands. He felt extremely happy that he had the blessings of all the sages in his last days. To Shukadev he said, O great master, I do not deserve the honor you have shown me by coming here. સંત તમારી પાસે આવે એટલે આનાથી વધારે શું જોઈએ? Please teach me the way of obtaining freedom from this chain of birth and death. મોક્ષની વાત કરી, મોક્ષની માંગણી કરી. He asked that please show me how to reach salvation, how to find liberation. Tell me what a man who is about to meet his death should do. Teach me, O Holy One. This is the most important thing. This question, this sentence, this statement. Teach me what a man who is about to meet his death should do. जिस व्यक्ति की मृत्यु निश्चित है, हालांकि समझना ये है कि हर एक व्यक्ति की मृत्यु निश्चित है, આપણા બધાની જ મૃત્યુ નિશ્ચિત છે, તો આપણે કરવું શું જોઈએ? આપણો જે સમય છે એ સમયનો સદુપયોગ કેવી રીતે કરવો જોઈએ? हमें हमारे समय का सदुपयोग कैसे करना चाहिए, क्या करना चाहिए? What should we do when we know our time is limited? How should we best utilize our time? That's what he asked. Shuk smiled at him and advised him on how to meditate. Then he proceeded to tell him the story of Lord's divine play in the universe. ઈશ્વરના વિશે, ઈશ્વરે શું શું લીલા કરી એના વિશેની કથા શરૂ કરી. Starts with, let us imagine this beautiful scene. The Ganges, like Ganga is flowing by, calm and serene. A slight breeze stirs the leaves of the tree. આજુબાજુના વૃક્ષો સહેજ પાંદડા હલતા. On the holy banks, a noble and virtuous king had spread the kusha grass and is seated upon it. All around him are the greatest rishis of the land. They are listening to the beautiful story of the Lord as the divine Shukdev relates it in his deep, melodious voice. Even the birds and animals of the forest have gathered around to listen. Let us also listen to this story and learn to make our hearts pure to receive its message. गंगा नदीનો કિનારો છે. गंगाजी के तट पर बहुत हल्की हवा बह रही है. પાણી તો વહી જ રહ્યું છે, પણ સાથે સાથે હવા પણ ને સરસ એમાં પાંદડા બધા ઝૂલી રહ્યા છે. ભરતખંડના દરેક મહાન ઋષિઓ છે અને કિંગ રાજા પરીક્ષિત પણ ત્યાં છે. અને ત્યારે મહાન સુખદેવજી એમના એક સરસ મીઠા અવાજમાં ભગવાનની વાર્તા, ભગવાનની કથા કહી રહ્યા છે. અને હવે આપણે એ આગળ સાંભળીશું. સૌથી પહેલા, the first story that Shukdev ji tells is the story of the Varaha avatar, the incarnation of Lord Vishnu in the Varaha form. So let us listen to that. Brahma is the creator of this entire universe as we know it. He created the first man and woman. The man was called Swayambhu, Manu. The first man is referred to as Manu, Maharaj Manu, and the woman was called Satrupa. So Brahmaji, when he created the universe, he created the man and the woman. Name of the man was Manu, Manu Maharaj, who is then later also the author of Manusmriti, and the woman was Satrupa. He commanded Manu and Satrupa, so Brahmaji commanded Manu and Satrupa to go forth and multiply, to go forth and procreate. Manu bowed his head before his father and said, O father, I shall indeed obey your command and beget children. But tell me, where am I to keep them? The Bhu, which is the earth, lies buried deep in the oceans of Pralay. So if I were to multiply, where am I going to keep all these children? Because the Bhu, which is the earth, is already submerged in the ocean after the Pralay. Only you can bring it above the waters. Therefore, Father, please help me. Brahma sat and thought about what was to be done, because the request was fair. He had asked him to multiply, but then where are they all going to live? So when he was thus brooding, a boar, no bigger than the size of the thumb, suddenly sprang out of his right nostril. Immediately it started growing till it had acquired a huge and gigantic form. The boar roared out loud. Roar means Vara. The dwellers of the heaven worshipped him in awe, for they knew him to be the incarnation of Sri Narayan, who had assumed this form for the good of the world. નારાયણ ભગવાન સ્વયં એક વરાહના અવતારમાં બ્રહ્માજીમાંથી પ્રગટ થયા અને પહેલા બહુ નાના હતા અને પછી ભયંકર વિકરાળ સ્વરૂપ એમને ધારણ કરી લીધું. The boar then dived deep into the oceans. He has, as you know, a very good sense of smell. Using it down below in the waters, he was able to smell where who was. As he was lifting it up, he was attacked by the vicious Daitya king Hiranyaksh. Hiranyaksh was the brother of Hiranyakashipu. Bhagavan Narayan took the form of a boar, Vara, અને વરાના અવતારમાં એમની બહુ જ જે સૂંઘવાની શક્તિ અતિશય પાવરફુલ હતી એ લઈને અંદર ગયા સમુદ્રમાં અને ત્યાં જઈને જ્યારે ભૂ એટલે કે પૃથ્વીને ઉપર એમને લાવવાનો પ્રયત્ન કર્યો તો હિરણ્યાક્ષ એમને રોક્યા. હિરણ્યાક્ષ એક રાક્ષસ હતો અને પછી તો વરાહ the boar was enraged because he was stopped. He pierced and clawed and tore open the Daitya king, Hiranyaksh. Hiranyakshનું પણ ભલું કરવાનું હતું. So then he brought earth above the surface of water, delicately balanced on his powerful tusks. જે બોરના આગળના જે ટસ્ક જે હતા, જે દાંત હતા એની ઉપર ભગવાન નારાયણ વરાહના અવતારમાં પૃથ્વીને પાણીમાંથી ઉપર લઈ આવ્યા. અને ભયંકર યુદ્ધ થયું હિરણ્યાક્ષ સાથે અને હિરણ્યાક્ષને એમને મુક્તિ આપી, એમને હરાવ્યા અને પછી એ પૃથ્વી ઉપર લઈ આવ્યા. The devas, the deities who were watching this, burst forth into hymns and praises and songs to praise Sri Narayana. So this was the avatara of Vara. આ બધા અવતાર વિશે સુખદેવજી પરીક્ષિતને કહી રહ્યા હતા. પછી આપણે સેજ we talked about Hiranyaksh, but we also want to know in detail who was he and why was he hiding the earth and had taken it down. So let us now see who Hiranyaksh was. It was the time of sunset, and this is a sub-story within a story. Okay, so the great Rishi Kashyap was just finishing his worship by pouring the last oblation into the sacrificial fire. Slowly the sun grew a fierce red and prepared to bed down for the night. Rishi sat down to meditate on the one Lord, the Supreme Brahman. Just then his wife Diti, the daughter of Daksha, approached him and said, Lord, I am tormented by my hunger for your love. કશ્યપ ઋષિ ને સાંજનો સંધ્યાનો સમય હતો અને એ સંધ્યા પતાવી રહ્યા હતા ત્યાં જ એમના જે પત્ની હતા દિતિ, જે દક્ષના પુત્રી હતા, એ એમને આવીને એમને પ્રાર્થના કરે છે. I'm tormented by my hunger for your love. Please therefore come and satisfy my desire. Kashyap, the sage, looked at her from his seat of meditation and saw this look of intense lust in his wife's eyes. He said to her very kindly, "Please wait for another hour, Diti. This is the time when Rudra, Shankar Bhagwan, the terrible, roams about with his retinue of Pishachas." The spirits, we all know that Shankar Bhagwan એમના બધા ભૂત અને એમના બધા ગણની સાથે સાંજે પ્રવાસમાં નિકળે છે. So the sage is saying, please wait for 1 hour because the Lord Supreme Rudra is, on his tour with everyone. So please hold on. He himself takes the form of a pishach and covers his body with ashes to teach people indifference to their worthless bodies, which they decorate with fine silks, flower garlands, and cosmetics. વિરક્તિનો પાઠ ભણાવવા શંકર ભગવાન પોતે એક પિશાચનું રૂપ લઈને આવે છે અને સૌને વિરક્તિ શીખવે છે કે પોતાના શરીર પ્રત્યેનો વૈરાગ્ય શીખવે છે કે આનાથી આપણે દૂર અમુક સમજવાનું છે અને એ જ્ઞાન આપવા માટે પોતે નીકળે છે. The body is verily the food for dogs. Rudra spurns wealth. Maya is his slave. He is the all-powerful Supreme Being. Let us now keep our minds pure and show him due respect by meditating upon him. So he just requests his wife, who is desirous of his love, that please, this is not the appropriate time. Please hold, the reins, control your desires, because this is the time when the Lord Shiv goes out to teach us this lesson. So let us keep our minds, pure. But Viti would just not listen to him. So Kashyap obliged. He then went and bathed in the cool, purifying waters and once more sat down to meditate. By now, Viti, the powerful wave, the tsunami of the hunger, of the love, the desire, had already subsided and was quite ashamed of herself. Trembling, she went and prostrated before her husband. She went back to her husband Kashyap. With tears in her eyes, she said, "O holy sage, I have been in the wrong, but please do not let Rudra destroy the seed that you placed in my womb. May Shiva, the Almighty Lord of the universe, heed my prayer and grant his protection." Kashyap then said to her, "Diti, your wrong has been twofold. You have been the victim of your own desires and disobeyed. 2 sons will be born to you. They will both be extremely wicked. They will murder the innocent, violate chastity of women, and insult great rishis. When the 3 worlds can no longer bear their deeds of rape and violence, the Lord himself will incarnate to kill them." See, you may understand this as symbolic, but we all know that the mental state, the thoughts, the manosthiti during the conception, during the pregnancy, is very important because it has huge impact on the child. I was invited to be part of one of the panels where they say that the first 1,000 days since the conception are extremely important because they are highly correlated to tremendous and different types of mental health issues in the later age. So Diti, who was overcome by these desires, was not in the right frame of mind at that time. Um, and then she realized, so that conception, the very seed, um, was not the best, was not the optimal mindset, was not there when that happened. And so, when she asked for forgiveness from the Lord, Kashyap said that, well, two children will be born to you, but then they are going to be terrible. And then Lord will himself have to come and take these different incarnations and avatars. Diti was struck with remorse. She kept her twin sons in her womb for 100 years, knowing that they would be a trouble to the Devs and the Rishis. Kashyap's seeds, however, were very powerful on account of the following incident which had taken place in Vaikuntha. Now we are going further back. Okay, so there is the story of Parikshit, and then Sukadevji is telling him the story of the Vara avatar. In the Vara avatar, we see that God in that form fights with Hiranyaksh. So here who trying to understand who is Hiranyaksh. So then we learn about the story of the sage Kashyap and Diti and their two sons. But then, who are these two sons? What is the Leela? What is the string behind? How different things are connected and interconnected. So who are these two sons and why did they have to come in these form? And that's the backstory of Jai and Vijay. Vaikuntha is the abode of Shri Vishnu. Vaikuntha ma Shri Vishnu rahe chhe. Shri Vishnu and his attendants live there in an atmosphere of pure sattva. Ekdam sattvic Vaikuntha ma. They see the same oneness everywhere and observe no distinctions. Koi bhedbhav nahi. One day, Brahma's mind-born sons, the four Sanat Kumars, decided to visit Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha. They looked like small 5-year-old boys. Sanat Kumar હતા હંમેશા એકદમ નાના 5 વર્ષના બાળકો હોય એવું જ રાખે. Even though they were the oldest living beings, the outer form was that of very young boys. This was on account of their great tap. The sages passed through the first 6 gates of Vaikuntha unchallenged. બ્રહ્માજીના પુત્ર હતા. પછી પહેલા જે 6 દ્વાર હતા, પહેલા જે 6 સ્ટેજ હતા એમાંથી તો પસાર થઈ ગયા. At the 7th gate, they were stopped by 2 gatekeepers of equal age and shining form, adorned with golden crowns and other sparkling ornaments. These 2 gatekeepers were known as Jai and Vijay. એટલે વૈકુંઠના આ દ્વારપાલ હતા જેમને સનત કુમારને રોક્યા. They stopped the Sanat Kumars with their clubs, thinking that they were small children. The rishis greatly pained at this and said, "How can you make distinction in Vaikuntha, where a uniform oneness prevails?" જ્યાં એકાત્મનો ભાવ હોય, વૈકુંઠ જેવી જગ્યાએ તમે કેવી રીતે ભેદભાવ કરી શકો? આનું બહુ જ દુઃખ થયું જ્યારે જય અને વિજયે એમને રોક્યા. How can you suspect danger to the Lord in whom the entire universe rests? બહુ સાચી વાત છે ને? Indeed, you are not fit to live in this sattvic sphere. We shall not be too harsh on you because you are his servants, but you will still have to descend to earth into the world of lust, anger, and greed, and all the other discriminations from which spring all this diversity. લોકોને શ્રાપ મળ્યો. Jai and Vijay realized their mistake. Immediately they bowed down before the Sanat Kumars and begged to be forgiven. Be it as you have said, they said, grant that we descend at the earliest and that even during our stay on earth we shall ever remember the Lord. Ketlu saras mangyu. What to ask for? Now, Shri Vishnu, because he knows everything, knew what had happened outside. With Lakshmi by his side, he hurried out to the gate. In wonder, the Sanat Kumar saw him on whom they had always meditated in their hearts. They prostrated before him and gazed upon his resplendent shining form and could not take their eyes away from him. Swayam Shri Vishnu jara same aave, when Lord Vishnu is in front of you, how can you take your eyes? That's what happened to the Sanat Kumars. Again they prostrated and bowed down before him and said, "Forgive us, Bhagavan, for having cursed your servants. May our curse not have any effect." This is when Sri Vishnu, Bhagavan Vishnu says, "It is I who should ask your forgiveness, for I am indirectly responsible for my servants' actions. Your curse shall have effect indeed, for it was not you who spoke, but it was I who spoke through you. Jay and Vijay will be born as asuras on earth, but their minds, intensified with anger and hatred, will be constantly united with me." There are two things that that I am indirectly responsible for my servants' actions. Leaders take responsibility. And here also, although the Sanat Kumar say that we have said something, Lord Vishnu says, well, you may have said it, but it was not you who spoke. It was I who spoke through you. Everything that we say and do, we think that we do, and that sense of doership is where the problem lies. Ahankar, મેં કર્યું, હું પણ, તમે કશું નથી કરતા. ઈશ્વર તમારા થકી ઘણું બધું કરે છે, કારણ કે આ તમારું જે ફોર્મ પણ છે એ પણ ઈશ્વર જ છે. એ ઈશ્વરથી ભિન્ન નથી, કારણ કે એકાત્મા અહીં પણ પ્રવર્તે છે. So, going a little further, now Jay and Vijay have been cursed and they will have to descend to earth. So to the doorkeepers he said, Lord Vishnu said to the doorkeepers, "Go forth and be not afraid. All will be well with you. Soon when the time comes, I will myself come to redeem you. Then with your minds purified, you will return to Vaikunt in my service." Jay and Vijay lost the glow on their faces and become dull and dark. They descended onto the earth and entered Kashyap's seed in Diti's womb. Because distinction, because Bhedbhav entered into Jay and Vijay, they got cursed, they had to come down, and this was all quite well planned, as you see. And they descended into Diti's womb, and Diti was otherwise, who was so pious, suddenly at that moment also succumbed to that lust, and the womb she had to carry. Now it was Jay Vijay, the two twins. One of them is, of course, Hiranyaksh. After remaining in their mother's womb for 100 years, the two Asura, the Rakshas, were born in Kashyap's ashram. Signs boding ill and bad omens appeared everywhere. The mountains trembled, storms uprooted trees and wrecked houses. The skies caught fire. Meteors fell upon the earth and caused great damage everywhere. Animals ran hither and thither in great fear. Human beings quailed and trembled. Cows yielded blood instead of milk. મહાન રાક્ષસનો જ્યારે જન્મ થયો ત્યારે બધું ઊંચું નીચું થઈ ગયું. Kashyap named the two asuras. કશ્યપ જે એમના પિતા હતા અને દીતિ થકી જે બે બાળકો થયા, જય વિજયનો જે આ જન્મ જે થયો, એમના નામ રાખ્યા Hiranyaksh and Hiranyakashipu. The two sons were named Hiranyaksh and Hiranyakashipu. They grew not only in size and strength, but also in pride and vanity. They were a terror wherever they went. They murdered people, slaughtered animals, troubled virtuous women, disturbed the sacrifices of the rishis, and abused them. Everyone trembled at the very mention of their names. One day, Hiranyaksh, tall as a mountain, his hair long and matted, his teeth dripping blood, brandishing his club over his head, entered Indralok and roared out a challenge. But He found no one there. Everyone had escaped. Everyone, including Indra, was in hiding. So he went into the ocean and challenged its ruler, Varun. Varun was old, wise, and shrewd. He said to Hiranyaksha, I am now old. I have given up fighting. My mind is fixed upon Sri Vishnu, the Lord of the universe. Why don't you challenge him? He is sure to kill your pride and reduce you to nothing. He was so full of pride he didn't realize the trap over here. He had gone to Indralok, Swarg, and challenged everyone. Everyone had ran away and they were in hiding. So then he goes to the ocean and challenged Varun, the Lord of Ocean. He plays a trick saying, I am old, I have given up. But then, hey, there is somebody else you should challenge. And he's going to make sure that he kills your pride and reduces you to nothing. Hiranyaksha, who is thirsting for a good fight, went in search of Sri Vishnu, but was told that he was now already incarnated as a boar and was lifting the earth from the oceanic waters. So Hiranyaksha instantly dived down and perceiving the divine boar lifting the earth on its tusks, laughed out loud and sneered, Aha! Now I have you at last. Till now you have been defeating the Asuras and remaining invisible. Now that you are visible, I shall fight and kill you and avenge all the Asurs that you have killed. બધા અસુરોનો બદલો લેવાનો છે હિરણ્યાક્ષ. મૂરખ. કોને ચેલેન્જ કરે છે? વિષ્ણુના અવતારને. વિષ્ણુને પોતે. Vishnu, who is avtarit as the boar, is challenging him. Lord Vishnu, who is in the form of the boar now, ignored him and continued lifting the earth up. Hiranyaksha followed him all the way, jeering that he was a coward fleeing from a worthy challenge. After coming to the surface, Sri Vishnu firmly placed the earth and gave it some of his own strength so that it may continue functioning on its own. Lord Vishnu did not deviate. He finished his task, placed the earth firmly, gave it some of his strength, then looked towards Hiranyaksha. And then a fierce struggle, a battle started between the two. It was a long and serious fight. Hiranyaksha was aided by all his Asurs. They all resorted to different magical tricks, Maya, and foul play. The Lord defeated them at every turn, till at last, with one final blow, the Dait Hiranyaksha was also killed. His eyes popped out, blood spurted forth from his huge body. He spun round and round and finally fell with a mighty thud that set the earth shaking. Hiranyaksha જ્યારે પડ્યો ત્યારે પૃથ્વી હલવા માંડી. The beings of three worlds wept in joyous relief and rejoicingly burst into praise of Mahavishnu. See, somebody who takes your pain away, you praise them. That's what has happened over here. Swayambhu, Manu and Satrupa were the first man and woman, remember? It's another story. Brahmaji, Manu and Satrupa said, please now multiply. And they are like, where is the earth? Where is the place for it? They now had 2 sons and 3 daughters because the earth was already rescued and firmly placed. So now there was a space for that. So Manu Maharaj and Satrupa had 2 sons and 3 daughters. The sons' names were Uttanpad and Priyavrat, and the daughters' names were Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Uttanpad and Priyavrat, the 2 sons. Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti were the 3 daughters. Now, why am I telling you about these? Because we are going to know about them. Okay, we are going to know and learn about the stories of the sons and daughters of Manu Maharaj and Satrupa. So let us first talk about Devahuti and Kardam, one of the daughters of Manu Maharaj, Devahuti. Kardam was a great sage who did penance on the banks of river Saraswati for many years. He prayed to the Lord to bless him with a good and beautiful wife. After many scores of years, Lord Vishnu appeared to him and said, I am pleased with your worship and penance. On the 3rd day from today, Manu will come and give you his beautiful daughter in marriage. You shall give her 9 daughters who will be the mothers of great rishis, and a son who will be none other than me. Then you will spend the rest of your days in meditation till finally you see me alone in the entire universe, and the entire universe is me. જ્યાં સુધી પૂર્ણ જ્ઞાન ના થાય ત્યાં સુધી પછી તારે તપ કરવાનું છે. પણ એ પહેલા 3 દિવસમાં મનુ મહારાજ આવશે અને એમની દીકરીના તમારી સાથે વિવાહ કરશે, અને એના થકી તમને 9 પુત્રી થશે અને 1 પુત્ર થશે. એ 9 પુત્રીઓ થકી બધા ઋષિઓના જન્મ થશે, અને એક જે પુત્ર હશે એ બીજું કોઈ નહીં પણ હું હઈશ. અને એ પછી તમારે તપ કરવાનું છે, ધ્યાન કરવાનું છે, જ્યાં સુધી આખા વિશ્વમાં, આખા બ્રહ્માંડમાં તમે ખાલી ને ખાલી મને જ જુઓ છો, અને આખા બ્રહ્માંડને પણ મારા તરીકે જ જુઓ છો. જ્યારે એ પૂર્ણ જ્ઞાન થાય કે આ આખું જે બ્રહ્માંડ છે ઈશ્વર છે, અને ઈશ્વર જ બ્રહ્માંડ છે, ત્યાં સુધી. Now, Devhuti had grown to be a very beautiful and charming girl. Her parents became anxious to find her a suitable husband. So one day, Manu mounted his golden chariot, took his wife and daughter along, and traveled through various lands and places looking for a good match for Devhuti. As they were traveling, they came to the banks of river Saraswati. They saw here a beautiful ashram. Creepers climbed the trunk of trees, flowers were pretty, delicate and fragrant, animals roamed freely, and birds chirruped joyously. To one side was a cool plantain grove. In this hermitage they saw a young man whose face glowed with glory of his tap, pouring oblations into the sacred fire. Manu alighted from his chariot and going up to the young man said, "O holy sage, as directed by the sage Narad, I have come to offer you my daughter in marriage. So far, only in your learning, wisdom, and youth have we found a match for her beauty, virtues, and character. Pray accept her as your wife and helpmate." Kardam looked at Devhuti. He was charmed by her youth and fresh beauty. Devhuti too liked the sage at the very first sight. So Kardam said, "I am indeed honored by your offer. Your daughter is indeed all that you say and even more. Even her shining ornaments look pale in comparison to her own matchless radiance. Yet I will accept her only on one condition. The moment a son is born to us who will be a ray of Lord Vishnu, Bhagavan Vishnu no ancha hase, I will go away and undisturbed I will perform penance for self-realization. હું મોક્ષ માર્ગ પર ચાલ્યો જઈશ, અને હું મારું તપ કરીશ, ધ્યાન કરીશ, જ્યાં સુધી મને પૂર્ણ જ્ઞાન ના થઈ જાય. Manu and Satrupa were delighted, and soon Devhuti was given in marriage to Kardam. For a number of years they lived a hard life of penance and sacrifice. Kardam would be engaged in performing tap, and Devhuti would faithfully serve him as a dutiful wife. Kardam taught her how to meditate. She was happy to serve her husband, but nonetheless she desired to have children. So after many, many long years of penance to Kardam and Devhuti were born 9 girls. They were all virtuous and beautiful maidens. Yet Devhuti's heart longed for a son. This longing of hers was soon fulfilled. The Lord entered her womb and was born in the world as Kapila. At the time of his birth, the Devas and Gandharvas, who are the celestial beings, showered flowers from heaven. Narad, Brahma, the 4 Sanat Kumars, and the 9 Prajapatis all came to visit Kardam and Devhuti. They congratulated them on the lotus-eyed, golden-haired beauty of their baby son. Then, amidst all the rejoicing, Kardam gave his 9 daughters in marriage to 9 Prajapatis, and they, after some time, went back to their own ashrams. 9 પ્રજાપતિ આવ્યા, જેમને 9 પુત્રીઓની સાથે લગ્ન થયા, અને કપિલ મુનિનો જન્મ થયો હતો, જે સ્વયં વિષ્ણુ ભગવાન નારાયણનો એક અંશ હતા. ઋષિ કરદમને ખબર પડી ગઈ હતી કે now it is his time had come for him to go અને તપ કરવાનો. He went round his son, the divine Lord, and bowed before him. Then he went away from the ashram and became a monk. Sannyasi. Yeah. So Kapil મુનિનો જન્મ થયો તો આપણે એમની પણ વાર્તા કરવી પડે. વાર્તામાંથી મનુ મહારાજ અને શત્રુપાના 2 દીકરા અને 5 દીકરીઓ, એમાંની એક દીકરી દેવહૂતિની આ વાર્તા છે, જેમના લગ્ન કરદમ સાથે થયા હતા. કરદમ અને દેવહૂતિને 9 પુત્રીઓ અને 1 પુત્ર. 9 પુત્રીઓના વિવાહ 9 પ્રજાપતિ સાથે થયા અને જે 1 પુત્ર હતા કપિલ મુનિ. હવે આપણે એમની વાર્તા કરીશું, એમની કથા કરીશું. Kapil soon became famous as a divine teacher and a sage of wonderful merit. He was the founder of the famous Sankhya philosophy. Naturally, Devhuti was proud of her learned son. One day she approached him and said, "Son, you are dearer to me than life itself. You have the knowledge of everything in this world. Will you not teach me how to gain freedom from birth and death?" Muktiman. I learnt much from your father many years ago. Now I wish to learn from you. પોતાના પુત્રને પોતાના ગુરુ બનાવ્યા. She went to the son and made him her teacher. Kapil looked affectionately at his mother and smiled. "Mother, I will gladly teach you what I know of gaining freedom from this cycle of birth and death. So please listen." આત્મજ્ઞાન, બ્રહ્મ વિદ્યાની વાત કરી. Then he told her that first and foremost one must have a pure heart and loving devotion to God. પવિત્રતા અને શ્રદ્ધા બહુ જરૂરી છે. He said, only they can claim eternal freedom who love God as much as they love themselves, as tenderly as they love their own children, who trust him as a beloved friend and revere him as the supreme guru, and above all, who worship him with unceasing devotion. Kapil then told her about God's play in the universe as Purush and Prakriti, about the 3 modes of the mind, guna છે, sattva, rajas and tamas, and taught her the yoga of meditation. Then, teaching her about divine love, he said, "Mother, those people who have hatred, anger and jealousy in their hearts worship God selfishly, as something apart from them. Such people have tamasic devotion. Those who pray to him for material gains have a rajasic devotion to him. But those who love him for the sake of love, not because they want anything, theirs is the sattvic, the highest kind of devotion. In this kind of bhakti, the mind runs towards Bhagavan continuously like the Ganga flowing into the sea." This is beautiful understanding. Talks about the 3 gunas, the sattva, the rajas and the tamas, and how if your devotion is based on the rajas or the tamas, then what happens? And if for you to move away from the cycle of, get freedom from the cycle of birth and death, then your devotion has to be sattvic in nature. Then he says, "Mother, to purify the heart, chitta shuddhi mate, one must obey the following rules of life." The rules are: the duties of life must be performed by everybody. Work must be looked upon as worship. One must chant God's name more and more. One must see the blessed Lord in all creatures and be friendly to all and kind to the poor and the helpless. One must be humble, devoted, and self-controlled, and must pass one's days in listening and chanting Lord's glories. ભગવાનના નામમાં અને એમના તપ અને જપમાં દિવસ નીકળે. Thus, Kapila taught his mother many wonderful things about the Lord's divine nature and how could one reach him. Devhuti followed her son's teachings faithfully and soon discovered the Lord of the universe, Jagadishwar, seated within her own heart. Jagadishwar તમારા હૃદયમાં જ છે. You don't have to go and find him anywhere else. He's right there. You just have to realize where he is, and you are him and he is you. Kapila left the ashram soon after this and went high up into the Himalayas, where they say he still meditates and prays for the welfare of the world. These teachings of Kapila made it possible for Devhuti to reach the state of sainthood. If we follow them sincerely, we too can become better and purer human beings. Now, this was the first daughter. We still have to know about the two other daughters of Manu Maharaj. They are Prasuti and Akuti. So now let us talk about Prasuti first. Manu's third daughter, Prasuti, married Daksha, the Prajapati. She gave birth to 16 daughters. They were all married to Lord Dharma, except one, of whose name was Sati. તમે સતીજીનું હંમેશા નામ સાંભળ્યું હશે અને હવે now probably you know who is going to be introduced next. One day, Daksha, Sati was a great devotee of Lord Shiv. She worshipped him all the times with intense devotion. Ultimately, Shiv and Sati were married. One day, Daksha decided to perform a huge sacrifice. All the gods, rishis, sages, kings, and celestials were invited to it. The day arrived. Everyone was seated in the hall which had been prepared for the sacrifice. The sacrificial trough had been dug. The materials for the sacrifice were kept ready in golden pots and platters. The Brahmin priests had all gathered. The mantras and incantations filled the air. At this moment, in the conches, shankhs were sounded. Daksh entered the sacrificial hall. એટલે યજ્ઞ સભામાં એમની એન્ટ્રી થઈ. The entire assembly rose in respect. Daksh's head went up and his chest expanded in pride as he saw the honor that all the gods and sages were showing him. And then his eye caught sight of two persons who had not stood up. They were Brahma, his father, and Shiva, his divine son-in-law. Daksh prostrated before Brahma and asked for his blessings. He then looked at Shiva, who continued to sit quietly. This Daksh could not bear, because he was full of pride. He was terribly angry. He lost his temper and abused Shiva in front of all the guests. He said, "You are a shameless person. I know you are jealous of my wealth and position. I've never seen anyone more ungrateful than you." મૂર્ખતાની શરૂઆત થઈ. I have given you in marriage my gifted and accomplished daughter, and yet you have dared to show me disrespect. To the Devas he said, "Look at him. He knows no difference between purity and impurity, respect and disrespect. He roams around in the cremation grounds. His body is smeared and covered with ashes. He should be called Ashiv, the inauspicious, and not Shiv, the auspicious." Then he poured a little water into his palm and sipped it up. The entire assembly looked shocked and horrified as he pronounced the curse. "Henceforth you will never get the share of any sacrifice. This should teach you a lesson." All through this, Shiva remained calm and composed, never uttering a single word in anger or protest. But one of his followers, called Nandishvara, could not swallow that insult to his beloved Shiva. Quickly, he too sipped a little water in and turned cursed Daksh, saying, "Shiva hates no one. It is Daksha who sees indifference around him. He considers his body to be all in all. He will forever remain chained to the path of sacrifice and ritual. Being fond of the body, he will be extremely attached to women, and he will soon acquire a face like that of a goat. The assembled Brahmins who support him will forever be caught up in the cycle of death and birth. They will crave wealth and worldly enjoyments. They will make a profession of their learning and thought." Ringu, the leader of Brahmins, uttered a counter curse on Nandi and the followers of Shiv. "They shall adorn their bodies with ash and bones, and with their hair loose they shall frequent the cremation grounds. Those who forget that Narayan is at the root of all things in the world shall attend only the Tamasic Shiva, the lord of Bhut and Pishach." Now there was so much confusion all around. People had never heard such terrible curses before. Quietly Shiva got up and left the Yajna Sabha. His followers too walked behind him. From that time onwards there was a constant enmity between the followers of Shiv and those of Daksh. Some time later Brahma made Daksh the head of Prajapatis. Daksha's pride knew no bounds. He decided now to perform a yajna on a lavish scale. This was the Brihaspati Yajna. To this Yajna, all the inhabitants of the three worlds were invited except Shiva and his divine consort Sati. Now, when Sati heard of the elaborate preparations that were going on in her father's house, she also wanted to go and see it. Shiva pointed out to her that they had not been invited. She looked at him pleadingly and said, "Surely a daughter needs no invitation to visit her father's house. In the intense preparation of the yajna, he must have forgotten to invite us. Besides, I so much want to see my mother and sisters again." So at last, Lord Shiva yielded. Dressing herself up in the finest clothes and accompanied by her own personal attendants, Sati set out for Daksha's house. It was a queer procession. Sati rode on Shiva's bull. Her maids went with her, singing, laughing, joking, their anklets making soft tinkling music. Shiva's attendants too were along. They were the odd-looking Bhut and Pishachis, their bodies covered with ashes and ornamented with skulls and bones. Thus this music-making, trumpet-blaring procession approached Daksha's palace. No one came forward to receive Sati Mata except her mother and sisters, who came out and embraced her. Her father even refused to look at her. Being afraid of Daksh, the other guests would not even talk to her. Sati obviously felt uneasy at their strange behavior. Then she looked around and saw that no yajna offering had been kept in the name of her husband, Lord Shiva. Her eyes sparkled and her lower lip trembled as she turned furiously on Daksha and said, "Shame on you, father. You have shown disrespect to Shiva, in whose eyes all are equal. You have ignored him, on whom all the yogis and Dev meditate as the supreme Brahman. I am indeed ashamed of this body which has come from you, who care not for the soul in your attachment for the body." She then dressed herself up in yellow silk, made achmana, water, and facing north sat in a yogic posture. Then she closed her eyes and, concentrating the air and fire elements in her body, fixed her mind on the feet of Shiva. As the horrified guests looked on, her body suddenly caught fire and was soon reduced to ashes. There was now a great furor and confusion in the hall of sacrifice. People ran here and there and everywhere. Even Daksha was sorry for what his stupidity had led to. Narad ran to tell Shiva about what had just happened. Shiva rose in trembling fury, bit his lip in anger. He tore a jata from his head and dashed it on the ground. From it sprang up the tall, terrible Veerbhadra, reaching the heavens in height, dark as a thick black cloud, his three eyes flaming like the burning sun, his teeth terrible to look at, his hair as bright red as the glowing fire. He had 1,000 hands, and in each hand he carried mighty weapons of destruction. Around his neck was a garland of human skulls. Standing there before Shiv as if awaiting to strike, he said, "What are your commands, my lord?" Shiva said, "Go and lead my whole army. Put an end to Daksha and his yajna." So this all started because King Parikshit realized that his time is limited and he needs to make the best use of it. So he gives away his kingdom to his son and goes to the river Ganges. All the rishis, all the sages are there. And then Sukadevji arrives and then he says, "Please enlighten us." Sukadevji starts narrating the stories of the glories of the Lord. And then it starts with the avatar of Varaha, where Lord Vishnu goes and wants to save the earth. There is Hiranyaksh, he has to fight. So who is Hiranyaksh? Hiranyaksh is the son of Diti and Kashyap. There is another brother, Hiranyakashapu. He will come up ahead in the stories further. And then there are stories within stories. Then we learn about Kardam and Devhuti, Devhuti is one of the daughter of Manu and Shatrupa. Right now, we are talking about the other daughter, who is Prasuti, the third daughter, and her daughter was Sati, who was married to Lord Shiva. એટલે અત્યારે આપણે શંકર ભગવાન અને જે દક્ષનો જે ધ્વંસ થયો હતો અને માતા સતી જ્યારે એમાં કૂદીને પોતાના શરીરનો ત્યાગ કરેલો એની કથા આપણે સાંભળી રહ્યા છે. સો વીરભદ્રને શંકર ભગવાને કહી દીધું છે કે જાઓ ધ્વંસ કરો, વિધ્વંસ કરો દક્ષનો અને એના યજ્ઞનો. આજે આપણે આ કથાને અહીંયા જ વિરામ આપીશું. કાલે વીરભદ્ર શું કરે છે એ જાણીશું. So today we are going to end. Veerbhadra is here and he has been commanded by Lord Shiva to go and destroy Daksha and his yajna. So tomorrow when we come, we will proceed to see what he does and what happens and how the story unfolds further and who else are we going to learn. The stories within stories within stories and one after the other. They all teach us different virtues of how to conduct our life, what to live, what should be the nature of our devotion to the divine, because we are the divine and the divine is us. This cosmos is nothing other than divine. So what kind of devotion should there be to the divine? And these are the different stories of the glories of the divine. So today we are going to end over here. Thank you to all those who joined, and I will see you again tomorrow. Till then, avjo, namaskar, namaste.